right now, we have State Senator Dr. John Bizon in the studio. Good morning, Dr. Bizon.
Good morning, Tim. So great to be with you again today.
Nice to have you here for our little monthly visit. I saw we had an article up, nice picture. You honored the American Legion up at the State Senate.
Oh, we had a great representation from the American Legion. We had the state adjutant, Ron Runyon, and the state commander is Steve Stigow. The National Executive Committee man was Ray Moore, and he was with us on the floor. And locally here, we had the post commander, Brian Molman, who has the post out by the VA. And I do a lot of work with Mark Sutton, who is the public relations director, but it was their 100th anniversary. And needless to say, we had just about everyone co-sponsor the resolution to honor them here throughout the state to sign on to this tribute.
Yeah, and hard to come out against the American Legion.
And they do so much good for us as well. You know, it's not only that they work with our veterans, but they work with our children. They have a number of different programs that they foster. They have a number of scholarships that are available to the extended family of veterans that they give out every year. They donate a lot of time over at the Department of Veterans Affairs and the medical facilities, even right here in town. And so I think that the American Legion does a great job. I belong to the one right here in Battle Creek, 298. I think I'm going to be meeting with them either today or tomorrow to give them a tribute to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the American Legion as well.
Just swell. That's great. Well, let's. One thing I wanted to bring up too before I forget. There's talk about a like a kind of a transparency bill, I guess, if you will, up in Lansing that would kind of expand who could be subject to FOIA requests. Am I getting that right?
That is correct. The House looked at it and they came up with some recommendations and suggestions. This is something that we've been mulling over for a period of time. I know that one of the very first bills that I had introduced into the legislature years ago was a Freedom of Information Act bill that's also known as LORA, L-O-R-A, the Legislative Open Records Act. And the bill that I had submitted would place both the executive office and administration and the legislature to have much more open records. It became part of a big 6, 7, 8 bill package that passed through the House years back, but never passed through the Senate. Now we have a lot of the people who are in the Senate who used to be in the House who have expressed support for this concept already, and the House, in their wisdom, has put together a series of bills that would make the legislature more subject to that. That's going to be coming over to the Senate, and we're going to be putting it through the a typical bill process where it's going to go to committee. It'll have its hearings. You'll have the chair and the committee work on those bills, see if they could somehow improve them, and perhaps say, nope, they are fine, let's just pass them along. But they may do that. They may say, whoa, we don't want to go there, and say that they aren't going to get out of committee. That sometimes happens as well. I don't know what's going to happen, but when they come out, depending upon what's in them, it's likely that I would be supportive.
So right now, if somebody wants to see some records in Lansing, I mean, what would be different about this from what we have now, or what do we have right now?
Right now, many of the operations of the legislature and the governor's office, if you wanted to come and look at my calendar, see what I am doing, if you were to want the governor's or the lieutenant governor's agenda and where are they spending time, that would not be readily available to the open public. There are a number of things that are in the press, and all of that is subject to the FOIA requests. If it's in the public domain, then obviously the legislature and the governor would be very, very open to it. Some of the private communications between myself and my constituents is considered to be I'm trying to think of the term here, um, confidential.
Hmm.
And because of that, if you were to come to me and talk about a specific problem, that would not now be foiable, and in the future, under either of the bills, that would be excused from the release of information. That we may need to say that, yes, we met, but the topics that we discuss would not be FOIA bill.
Gotcha. Uh, Moving to the road repair situation, the gas tax, and all of that stuff, the governor, of course, in a budget recommendation, saying, jack the gas tax up an additional 45 cents and dedicate that not to the usual road funding pot, but a new one which would address the more traveled roads in the state. Um, First of all, is anything going on right now, or are you hearing any buzz about bill or any proposal being made to address the road problem in Michigan right now?
Both houses are actively seeking solutions to the problems that we have with our roads. There are a lot of people who say we need to throw more money at this. I think you and I have had a discussion about should we perhaps be building roads better rather than
Hmm.
building the roads that we know are going to fall apart in another 3, 4, 5 years. There are those who would suggest that having it pre-manufactured would give us much better control of the entire system. Perhaps we need a system where you have something like Lego blocks, which would conceivably facilitate drainage of water off the roads. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I still love the idea of having a road heated so that we hopefully would not have to put in the salt, we would not have the maintenance, we wouldn't have the scrapers on top of the roads, further adding to the depreciation and the the needed repairs of the roads during the winter months. So both houses are going to be looking at this and coming up with their suggestions, and then in all probability we will either massage the House bill or they'll be massaging our Senate bill, and they'll be choosing a way to go. The public is interested in this, I have to admit, and we've received hundreds of communications from our constituents saying, I feel this way or that way. And when I checked with my office staff before I left, we had some 250 people contact the office from the district.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
of those, there were 2 that were supportive of the expansion of the tax, the 45 cents, and then there were
248.
that were not very supportive and in fact said this is terrible and don't go with it. So,
Yeah.
from my standpoint and from what I've heard from my fellow representatives, I was with Julie Kelly last night at a meeting up in Ionia, and she said she did twice as well on those 200 that called her office, and she had 4 people that were
Yeah.
supportive then.
Well, here's the thing too, that we once the budget was proposed or presented, the big news was 45-cent gas tax increase. What didn't really come out for a few more days was that they wanted to put that toward the most traveled roads in the state. So
Mm-hmm.
I brought up the MDOT map to see what roads those were, and they have them on a map in red. And guess where all of them are?
I am guessing in southeast Michigan where you
Every
have.
single one of them. So basically, what it sounds like to me is the governor's proposing to jack up our gas tax 45 cents a gallon and then give almost all of it to the Detroit area. Is that going to happen? I mean, is that an executive order? Is that
No, that's her proposal. And as you know, the governor proposes and the legislature disposes. And I think that there is just not the appetite to go with the number one, the 45 cents, and number 2, not getting something out of it after we pay so much in taxes, especially here where we're a little bit more rural than and have a little bit less tax than in some of the other places around the state. I know that all the people from the west side of the state have been very, very disappointed in that proposal. And, we have been putting money into the lower part. When we pay taxes, there are a number of things that come off the very top of the budget, and those include rail grade crossings and local bridge funds and wetland mitigation. That you have mass transit for local bridges. You have money going for mass transit. You have money going for local bridges. There's still a lot of money that we put to the transportation debt that is from 15, 20, and 25 years ago. We still have a couple $billion in debt remaining. Over the last several years, we have been able to pay down that debt by something like $1.2 billion. So we're having a lot less debt now than we had before, simply because we were able, over the Snyder years, to pay a lot of that off.
What State Representative Dr. John Bizon, State Senator Dr. John Bizon, yeah, it'll take me a little while. It's like writing the checks the new year.
Exactly.
Senator Bizon, if you could be like George Bush and be the decider or king, I mean, and you came up with a plan, I mean, what would you do to fix our roads right now?
I would say that we're throwing good money after bad if we have nearly full employment of the Michigan people who fix roads. And to say we're going to throw massive more dollars means that we're going to have to import workers from outside the state in order to be able to get the work done.
Good point. We had a caller here that said, hey, I work in this business. There's nobody to do this work right now. We're working around the clock.
So I would want to see the good Senator Shirkey, I want to say a year or two ago, had the idea of we need to do it better, and let's put $100 million into innovation fund and see what happens. And at the end of the time, I think we had $88 million left in that innovation fund that we just released for the roads. I voted against that because I felt that that was the right answer. Mm-hmm. That you can look around the world and they're making roads out of recycled plastic. They're making roads out of recycled tires. If you were to mass produce the roads in a factory setting, you could get the concrete to be significantly harder than what you do when you pour it out on the roads. You could put it into the equivalent of Lego blocks and just use a crane to put it in position. You get a pothole in the road and you lift out that section.
It's like that carpet we have here that Hans put in from Michigan Tile and Carpet. It's great. You know, a lot of offices are doing this. It's carpet squares, and if some idiot spills on one of them, or the local shelter brings over a dog and there's an accident, you just pull up one section and replace it and you're done.
Exactly.
I like that.
You know, and the question becomes, can we do something like that, especially if the base is still secure? And I just think that we need a new way of doing this. And I would say let's reach out. Let's continue doing what we're doing. We're going to be putting a couple more $100 million in over the next several years. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to be slowly expanding the work that needs to be done. But rather than a huge infusion, I would argue, let's start doing it better.
The governor and others are saying we need north of $2.1 billion to get our roads up to par. Do you agree with that number then? It sounds like you don't.
You know, we may need to, but if we build better roads, we shouldn't. Mm-hmm. I think she's saying we need $2 billion more to throw into the system that we have where the roads last 3 to 5 years. And I would be arguing that the Romans still have aqueducts built out of cement that are standing 2,000 years later. And yes, we don't drive a 100-ton truck across an aqueduct, but by the same token, that was 2,000 years ago.
Right. So if we can kind of parallel that in terms of technology, well, I think a lot of people agree that we need to find some way to get more bang for our buck in these roads. Sure. 95.3 WBCK, where State Senator Dr. John Bizon is our guest this morning. We're still talking about roadways a little bit there during the commercial, John, and you alluded to this idea of maybe a Lego type thing that'll actually pass water through the pavement. Boy, water is just the one of the enemies, and I was telling you there's a proposal down in Leroy Township.
Mm-hmm.
A millage proposal, and part of the plan is to trim trees, and some people were questioning that on social media. But if you drive down any rural road and you find a heavy canopy of tree, look down and see what the pavement looks like under that, where that water continually drips off those trees and it's shaded all the time. It's the worst pavement there is. So that's an important component.
And not only that, you have a safety component there as well. That when you have trees, not only do you get the water, but when it freezes, it becomes a hazard.
Yeah, and so that's just part of kind of what you were alluding to earlier. We just need to build roads smarter, and that may mean losing a few trees and using different materials, or you said it before, even turning them back into gravel roads on occasion for certain roads.
Certain of the roads that are not traveled greatly, because those are dirt cheap, excuse the pun, to repair and maintain, and we could do just a lot better job if perhaps not every road was paved, but on the other hand, if we do it better, maybe we'll have enough money for all of these roads.
I wanted to ask you about our gas tax as it stands now. There's talk that some of that gas tax goes into the general fund and does not go to roads. It goes to other things such as schools or whatever. Could you expound on how that works?
Certainly. There is a gas tax that we currently have that's about 26 cents on a gallon of gas.
Okay.
You have federal taxes on that as well. So part of this is federal, and that's about 18 cents on a gallon of gas. On top of those two taxes, we pay taxes on top of taxes, in that there's a Michigan sales tax that is applied over and above the other taxes. And this is different than most other states, because most other states don't have a sales tax on the petroleum products, simply because you have all of the other the other state and federal taxes already applied to those products. And it is that 6% sales tax on top of all the other prices that goes to the schools and to the cities and to the general fund. The vast majority of it goes to schools, and that's why when you say we need to change the formula and put all the money towards the roads, it'll be the schools and the municipalities that are going to be saying, whoa, hold on, that's our money that you're taking, and we want to be held whole. And it just makes it tough for that communication. It makes it tough to push that when so many people say we need to do so much better in those other arenas as well.
So are you for or opposed then to diverting that sales tax on petroleum products back to roads?
I think it's something that needs to be studied. I think it's something that I don't have a great answer for, because schools are important. And you're probably correct that if we were to take the tax off of fuels, we probably should be looking at what is the impact on the rest of the budget that gets changed in the process. 45 cents would take our total taxes on fuels up to about 102, 108, I'm sorry, not 100, $1.02. $1.08, depending upon what the underlying price of the gas is. And as you know, that's been fluctuating a fair amount recently. But that would give us the very, very highest fuel taxes of any state in the United States by about 30%. You take a look at the next highest state with fuel taxes, and I think you're looking at California, that puts 70 cents of taxes on their fuel products and would be 30 cents above that.
Wow.
You look at the second highest, and well, the third highest in the nation is, I want to say, Texas, and they have 73 cents. All of our surrounding states appear to be putting an extra 10, 15 cents in new taxes in order to support the roads.
Well, we certainly have to be careful because we're trying to build our economy up here,
And we don't want to
yep.
be the very most expensive state. We already have terrible auto insurance prices that we pay. The auto no fault is another thing that we're looking at. We have some of the senators who are saying, wow, if we can bring down the auto no fault insurance rates, then perhaps increase in taxes would be more, in fuel taxes would be more palatable. But I still argue that we need to do things better and not always look to the people for the dollars that we need. And I truly believe that if we did auto no fault better, we should be able to pay for the system with many fewer dollars. And same thing with the roads. If we can do it better, we'll need less dollars moving into the future.
State Senator Bizon, we look forward to hearing hopefully some movement on road repair funding and no fault. By the time we talk to you here next time in April. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Always great to be with you, Jim. Thank you so much.